So, welcome everybody to our Digital Humanism lecture today, which is more a celebration than a lecture. And it's, of course, as many of you know, on the occasion of the 1 million accesses of our book, Introduction to Digital Humanism. So, congratulations from my side to all editors, to all the authors who were involved. So, that's, I think, really a remarkable success. And we want to, so to say, use this occasion to talk a little bit today about history, impact, and future of our movement. And for this, I'm very happy that two of our front runners in our movement will run this evening today. And I give a very short introduction because many of you know Enrico Nardelli and Hannes Werthner. So Enrico is a professor of informatics at University of Rome, Vergata, and has been president of Informatics Europe. He has, of course, many achievements, but I just wanted to know that in 22 he received the prize Associazione Rita Levi Montalcini, awarded by the Italian National Association of School Principals to scientists and researchers who have excelled in disseminating scientific culture in school. Hannes Werthner, on the other hand, he's a former dean of TU Wien in Austria, where he also led the e-commerce research unit at our faculty of informatics. He also has one very important grant, and in fact in the area of e-tourism. So I started to read the wrong direction. There is now a grant named after Hannes Werthner, the Hannes Werthner Tourism and Technology Lifetime Achievement Award, which is given by the IFITT, the International Federation for IT and Tourism. So I'm very happy to have you, Enrico, and you, Hannes, to celebrate with us this remarkable success. And I'm looking forward very much to what you have to tell us. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Stefan, for your introduction. As you said, today is a celebration, and on this celebration, I will be interviewing Hannes Werthner, that I consider to be the initiator and the main driving force behind the digital humanism movement, together and with the help of many others contributors, many of whom are today here with us. So it will be an interview, but it is also an invitation to everybody attending this seminar to consider this occasion as an open-ended and a collective reflection on what we did in the past. We have been working on this since almost 10 years, and also propose question or ask the floor to provide your personal comment. I mean, this is the essence of a movement is the collective participation. So since one of the fundamental elements of digital humanism is the attention of the human side, pay attention on human side of everything, I would like to start discussing the history of this movement. So my first question to Hannes is, how did you think almost 10 years ago of doing something in this area? Which were your sources of inspiration?
Enrico, thanks for the question. But first of all, I would also use this moment of joy and to celebrate our achievements to thank you all of you who are here now in this group, and maybe those who will listen later, because I think, as Enrico already underlined, this is something, a joint success of a broader movement where we now can look at several thousand persons participating in our different, let's say, events and things we have done. How did it come and what was the reason to starting it? And it's not just 10 years. It's something where I see throughout my whole scientific career, I was thinking of the impact of computer science on society. I started already in the 80s, 90s with seminar on societal impact of computer science, as well as, let's say, gender issues in computer science. That time together with Gerti Kappel, she is now the dean of the faculty. So this is something which really came and was always accompanying me apart from the, let's say, theoretical consideration, but also from the practical part. And then when I was dean at the faculty for 4 years, I had the opportunity, or I took the chance, together with the scientific advisory board, which at that time I constituted to advise and to monitor the faculty on future direction, like professorships, content, organization of studies. But we also started to think in broader terms about what does computer science mean for the society. And just to reflect, this was the time before AI was becoming so prominent, and we had this discussion within this scientific senior advisory board, and all those who were part of this advisory board participated in these discussions, which then led to the first Vienna workshop on digital humanism. And in some sense, digital humanism is also due to their input, which is I would like to name them now. It was Nadia Manya-Thalmann in the advisory board. It was Hans Ackermann, Carlo Gezzi, Edward Lee, and Moshe Wadi. So these were those 5 persons accompanying us. And there we had this discussion about when we finished, let's say, in some sense, to discuss computer science at the university institution at TU Wien, we soon realized that the topic is much broader. It has a societal, a political, an economic impact. And this, when it started. So it was from my personal interest from the early beginning, throughout my scientific career, but then also, let's say, in the specific moment when being a dean, having this advisory board. And it mixes somehow my interest in the topic of computer science, but also somehow a political activism, because it's something, it's not only a scientific endeavor, it's also something like taking the responsibility of a scientist or of a citizen serious and interfere with our society, also within content related, but also democratic discussion. So this is more or less the broader background, right? This at least came from my side, and I met with those persons who had a similar view of what is going on.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this recollection. And when you were speaking, I recalled that in some sense around those years, the sensitivity on this theme was high among us. I remember that at that time I was the president of Informatics Europe, and on 2019 we had our annual summit in Rome, and the theme of the summit in Rome in 2019 was the social responsibility of informatics. And we were discussing exactly this issue, because artificial intelligence, social networks, we were seeing the trend in society, how society was going to be affected more and more, not in a very good way by our technology, the technologies that we have contributed to create. So it was high in many of us, the feeling, the urgency of doing something for our community. So you remember, I would like also to say something more, that you say something more about the first step of the movement. So everything started in a workshop that, I mean, was well attended, but I think nobody of the people that was there at that time was expecting this success. So what can you say about these initial steps of the movement?
We had, I still remember, it was 2018. We had a meeting of this scientific advisory board, this international advisory board, and there was a guy coming from the Vienna Research Fund and discussing with us also about the future of computer science. And there was the idea of, the notion came up, was digital humanism, which in essence was also based on a book written by a German philosopher, Julian Niederrümelin, who is now part of our movement. And he wrote a book in German about digital humanism, but having more a philosophical approach to the topic and missing a little bit the technical point of view, let's say it in rather simple terms. And there we had this discussion that let's say, this computer science part needs to be enforced in these first steps. So, and we thought that digital humanism would be a proper name so that we combine the human with the machine, accepting also that a human is not a machine and a machine is not a human, which is somehow a principle, let's say, basis where we started from. And there we also had then this idea of doing a workshop, which was done in April 2019, where many of you participated. We were not thinking of, let's say, of such a big success. And it was a little bit, let's say, we had our sessions and we had these discussions and we had people from law up to anthropology, philosophy. We had a good diversity with respect to gender and disciplines. And at the end, we had the idea to write a document as a result of the meeting to have some, let's say, to go to the public and to discuss it. And I still remember Hans Ackermann had the idea to rename the document to be a manifesto, because at the initial beginning we thought maybe, I don't know, I still don't, I do not remember exactly what we had in mind, but Hans came forward, let's name it manifesto. And then it was the Vienna manifesto on digital humanism, which was in rough terms drafted during the meeting. And then it was afterwards, it was a collective editing process with 2 or 3 rounds. And then it was published. It's now available in 9 languages. We have several thousand signatures. It's part of, let's say, national and European research programs, things like that. And it contains in the principles, starting from, let's say, the basic difference of humans and machines, and the limits of machines, but also limits of human. The objective is a better life, society and our environment, and using technology for what that means. And there were principles, and it was on one side this, let's say, analysis, what is going on, as well as a call for action. This was somehow important part, acknowledging the need for interfering, not having only an academic, let's say, endeavor, but also having it as a, let's say, action or activity program. So this was in 2019. This was, let's say, a surprise. Then we had these publications, and the response was enormous. The response was really huge from different sides, and it was somehow, the time was somehow ready for that. It seemed that people were waiting for it. So it was, and when you compare it of today, now 6 years or 7 years later already, you have many different initiatives talking about AI and society and things like that. But at that time, it was not so broadly accepted. There was a sense within the computer science community that there should be some reflection on that. We have to take a position. We have to talk about that. We are not just scientists, and we do something and then it's up to the others to make a proper use of the technology. But we realized that technology is not something which can be just developed and then giving to anybody, but we have to think about what we do and how we do it. And this response was really overwhelming, and I think we are all surprised by what happened since then.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the moment was the proper time to start, because there was a general feeling that something was needed, and so the fact that we started doing this acted as a catalyst for something, for a need that was present in many people. And from my viewpoint, one of the most interesting side effect was the urgence to be more and more multidisciplinarity in my approach, which I think is one of the important lessons that we have after all this year. I mean, we can no more consider our discipline as a discipline that is pure science. It's of course also technology, but is a technology that affect heavily society and people, and we are seeing it everywhere now with the explosion of artificial intelligence. At that time was less less heavy the impact, but still was there. So if you would like, if you can compare the situation of our scientific discipline when we started and now 7, 8 years later, which difference do you see beyond, I mean, the explosion of artificial intelligence that is clearly a game changer, but it's not only artificial intelligence in itself as a technology. I would say also it's the way the everybody person consider I mean, artificial intelligence, but indeed computer science as part of their life. What do you think?
It's interesting because this notion of, let's say, cooperation with other, let's say, in collaboration with other sciences. No, I will come to your question after that. I think what we had we had this discussion whether we are, when we go to other sciences, whether we are emperor or the plumber. Whether we take over the science and telling them what to do with our, let's say, computational thinking approach, with our paradigm that everything can be solved with these algorithmic computational approaches, or we are a plumber, where we provide them with tools and we just have to teach them the proper use of these tools. I think what we learned is that there is a closer relationship, and what we also learned is that we need other sciences to develop further our science. And I see it as something where, let's say, the roots of computer science on one side are in this, let's say, mathematics logic, and the other part is the engineering tradition, where it's, let's say, software and engineering, but also natural science, if you look at this empirical approach from hypothesis formulation to testing. And what we have learned is that we are also need social science and humanities. That is something where we have to, not only for the impact, but also for the progress of our discipline. And this is, then it is closely related to AI. This comes then with AI, where, let's say, let's say, this is a sub-symbolic AI, where we have these black box machines, partly where we hard to understand the results. We need, let's say, instruments, we need knowledge to judge the result, to say, to classify the stories produced by these machines. And there, I think it's something where humanities may help, for classifying and putting things into context. Social science, for example, with an approach like triangulation coming from the social science part. So I see this as a learning process from the computer science, where we not only deliver, but we also need the input from others. So this is something which I see as a, let's say, a learning of these 6 or 7 years, which is then enforced by AI as, let's say, the next wave in the process of digitalization, as the next wave of this digital transformation. And I think for sure, there are further steps coming. I don't see AI as the end of this overall development. So I think computer science in a strong responsibility to take this serious and to use also and to cooperate with other disciplines. And this is something I think which has changed, and also changed in our mindset, no? That we are, let's say, have a broader understanding of scientific methods which we need to use.
Yeah, yeah. So in some sense, we could say that we are seeing a more and more intense digitalization of the world, and since almost everything is digital and will be even more digital in the future, the importance of our disciplines that study how to manipulate this digital representation becomes more and more important, and therefore our need of engaging with the social consequences of this manipulation are even stronger. So it's this is an important responsibility for us, because I mean, the more we progress with the digitalization and with manipulation of data, the more we have to consider ourselves responsible of the direction of our discipline. So it's And probably is something, and indeed we are considering it, is something that should be started also before university. In the project for Italian schools that I am managing since 10 years, in the last year, I mean, after the start of digital humanism, more and more we are spending time in presenting to teachers and students the importance of being aware of what these digital technologies do, how digital data can be used and misused. And so I think that in some sense, from the first moment that children start using digital technologies, they should be educated in the social consequences of this technology. A bit like, I mean, you show them the fire and you tell them, look, the fire can be good but can be bad, so pay attention to the fire. So pay attention to digital technologies. They can provide a lot of nice things for people, but also bad things. And this has to be started very, very early. And now you have produced a new book for school that is coming out in many languages around Europe. What can you tell about this book? That is, I mean, let's say, which is
Before I go to the question of your book, I think reflecting once again on this computer science thing is, I think that digital humanism in some sense can serve as a framework for scientific activity, because it not only it combines research, scientific research with analysis, but also of interfering with society and having a political, let's say, a political communication, a communication to the public. And I think this is what we in digital humanism understood very early, from the early beginning. And I think this is also coming now to other, let's say, to computer science in general, and also to other science and universities. For example, in COVID, we learned during Corona pandemic and COVID, we learned that this is an important part, this communication. And I think here digital humanism can also serve as a framework, let's say, as something which you could. Regarding the book, this is, as so many things, they happen, you have an idea, and then the ideas develop. So we had first the introduction book where we had now this 1 million downloads. And then we said, okay, this is too complicated. So it's an academic writing in English. And if we want to, let's say, interfere more broadly, we have to go to schools, okay? Which was also written in our manifesto, where also due to your input and your consistent insistence, let's say like that, we said, okay, we have to start very early with education in these digital technologies and their impact, but also in computational thinking, we have to do something for schools. And then we thought, okay, let's take several chapters of this book, translate it to German at that moment, but we translated it twice. So we translated the language and we also translated the content to pieces which are understandable for high school pupils and students. So it's not an academic writing, it's more an educational writing. And this we produced in German for German school. It's now used in German schools. They're already the first courses we have, which are quite successful. And it's combining technology with ethics, with philosophy, application of technology, AI and biology, natural science, but also with a political dimension like concentration in the web and things like that. And as all our communication, all our writing is open access, we said, okay, let's give it to whoever wants to have it. So one of them were you taking it and translating it to Italian. We have now 4 translations. We have three, sorry, we have German. Now we have German, Italian, English, and Dutch. We are in the process of negotiating with having a Chinese version. And the only thing, those who use it, they can take it for free. They just have to translate it. And then they can use all a little bit as you have done, the graphic and the design is a little bit complicated, but this is the only, let's say, barrier. And I think this was probably not a more important step, but it was an equally important step to go also to other communities, because the future is somehow this lifelong, life-wide learning, and we have to be aware of that. And we have to give the young and the old one the means so they can, let's say, navigate properly in this digital space, because as you correctly mentioned and right mentioned, it's hard to imagine, but we are not at the end of this process. It's hard to imagine what will happen, but there will happen further steps. And you can only navigate on the longer term if you have knowledge about it. I think things to forbid it or something like that, they will not help on the long run. You can do something if you have knowledge, if you know what's happening, and then you can use it properly. And I think this is the broader background for doing something in schools.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I'm day by day fighting so that in school, for what regards my area, students are taught not how to use the tool, but which are the basic concepts that make those tools possible. Because this is the only knowledge, the only competence that in the long run will be helpful to them for their life. Because I mean, we that have some years on our shoulder, we see that technology changes. I mean, when we started studying our discipline, there were completely different technologies, but the concepts are still the same. And this is something that is not understood. So nowadays, for example, everybody in school speaks about teaching how to use the prompt for artificial intelligence. While I mean, you should know a bit more behind the scene. So definitely, education is more important. And I would like to take a moment to thanks all the editor of this introduction book, the Beyond Hannes. The book was edited by Carlo Ghezzi, Jeff Kramer, Julia Nida Rumelins, Bashar Nuseibe, sorry if I pronounced it not properly, Eric Prem and Alison Stanger, and I think most of them are here with us. So these are the editors of the 1 million downloads book that was not the first book we produced, because we had actually produced an earlier book called The Perspective on Digital Humanism that has not yet reached 1 million, but is close to that. It's 8,000 and something. That was the initial effort by you, Edward Lee, and Carlo Ghezzi and Eric Prem, and was also, I mean, a success. I mean, not 1 million, but 8,000. It's really a very good measure. Also, let's say in commercial terms, which are not commercial, but it's good because it's not money that is most important for us, but is spreading knowledge about this important discipline. So I don't know if you or also others, sorry, until now has been a dialogue between me and Hannes, but if everybody want to jump in and say something, you are more than welcome. So what can you say about this initial book, The Perspective on Digital Humanism, that we produced in 2022?
So this was the first, as you said, we had 850,000 downloads, something like that. So we have now reaching nearly 2 million. It was let's say a first, let's say from, maybe I can add something what we have done besides the books. No, I think this is because we have done conferences, we have done 4 conferences, we have done our online lectures. This is one of this now, where we have nearly monthly online lectures on different topics, where we had now, I think, all 80 of them, and everything is online accessible with video and the power and the PDF slides. We have summer schools. Now we have four, now the fifth summer school in Europe, and now we are approaching the second summer school in Africa, where we go to Ghana, where we also approach, let's say, with this respect. We have research programs on Viennese, on a national level in Austria, as well as in Europe. We have also succeeded in funding or founding a non-profit association, which is now as a Verein, where Erich Brehm, who is one of the editors, is acting as president. So we have something, let's say we have a broad ensemble of activities reaching out to different communities. The two books are more, let's say, on this academic and analytical approach, where we had the perspective was a first step to, let's say, approach the notion of digital humanism, where we have different, let's say, from the technical point of view, from the philosophical, but also from critical issues, where we really could show, let's say, this dialectics of technology, let's say the dialectics of information technology, the good and the bad, okay? That we are, it's the good and the bad. We are really creating enormous success and we have huge potential. And at the same time, we are, let's say, the downsides of it. And this is already mentioned and was recognized by Tim Berners-Lee, but we wanted to show both parts of it, no? And the second one was the introduction, where we laid somehow the foundation of this digital humanism concept, as we have seen that it's, let's say, it's a simple term to say, okay, we want to have technology for the people and according to human needs, taking into consideration environments and things like that. But it's, when you really look carefully, it becomes rather complicated. It becomes rather complicated. It's a research issue where you need different disciplines. It's a, let's say, a systems point of view where you need to develop systems and you need all the engineering skills with the different stakeholders. And then you have to look at the critical issues coming from concentration up to, let's say, fake news, threats for democracy, where you have an ensemble of measures. You have regulation, you can have use law, you can use education, all those different things come together. And this was the basis for the, let's say, the introduction book, where we tried to cover all these different aspects. So this is something where we, I think, where we laid a broader foundation crossing also different disciplines.
Okay, and so it seems that two books are out for universities, one book for school, but there is still much to do. Above all, I would say from the research viewpoint, because this is a kind of research that is really interdisciplinary and social research, where you cannot easily generalize with theorem, but you have to go on the field and understand by talking to people which are the issues and how to best address them. So it's I think there, I mean, I don't know how many more books we will be able to write, but certainly there is the need of doing more research in the area. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny that you say this with the books. I was approached by Springer now, whether we don't want to do a second edition of the introduction. I'm currently talking with them about open access fees, because, you know, when you do, this is, I think this is important for all of you to know. If you do something open access, somebody has to pay. So we are collecting the money to transfer a specific amount of money to the publisher, and it's whether it's Springer or Elsevier or also an association of ACM ask for money, and this is something. This is a major issue. I think it's research is. I think a good research is when it opens new questions for research, and I think this will never end. But I think one issue which is pressing. So one thing is clear for me: it's becoming more and more political. Okay, it's becoming more and more political because we are in the political arena. If you look at the geopolitical discussion, if you look at AI, if you look at investments in innovation, this is a clear political issue. So this is something we have to take care, and we have to be aware of that. So we cannot behave like school children and be innocent in some sense.
Yeah,
I think we should be aware what we do. So this is one issue. It's a political discussion, and this is from all sides. Go to the left and go to the right. It's something independent which position you take. But what interests me most at the moment is, beside this cool issue, is innovation. I think Erich has said we have to think about good life. What is the notion of a social, societal good life where the needs of people are satisfied? How does this look like? Okay. And how can technology contribute to that? So this is putting it in a broad ensemble. Maybe this is overestimating our capacity that we can provide something to that. But I think this is the issue. In digital humanism, when I do a presentation, or each of you who are doing a presentation, at the end, you always ask what to do, okay? And I think we have to take this innovation aspect seriously, and we are currently organizing a workshop where we want to combine something like the well-known business model canvas, which is used by startups to present their business idea, with the principle of digital humanism. So this is a practical tool which you can then use if you go to design new products, new systems, new technology. Also taking it serious that there needs to be a new software engineering, requirement engineering aspect and things like that. But I take this as let's say, the time we have to use it for innovation issues.
Yeah.
I don't know, but this I invite now the others to comment on this, because this is something like a joint activities we are doing. These are just my little thoughts.
Yeah. No, I agree with your position, because we see too much technology is driven by the pure business purpose of companies, that of course company has all the rights of doing their own business, but I think that we should be entitled also to receive something that is for public good, not only for the good of the companies. Therefore, there is something where, I don't know, maybe the state, the national government should be more active in asking this. Okay, there are many hands raised. So Bashar is the first, please.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, nice to see all of you. I guess I have a couple of reflections on the book as written, since it's a good time to reflect, I suppose. One is the fact that even when it was written, I suppose it was a little bit political even at that time. So I suppose one manifestation of that is the selection of authors. So the Eastern Hemisphere, as it were, perhaps was not represented, even though we talk about it, but perhaps not represented. And that's an interesting choice that we made, perhaps maybe because we had a political position, but also because digital humanism is interpreted differently, perhaps by different communities. So I think that's something worth reflecting on, whether we can still have the debate and the narrative in the same structure of this book with different audiences. The second thing, which is possibly more academic, which is, I think, possibly the social sciences, perhaps psychology and so on, were not addressed as much as personally I would have liked, because I think we talk about humans and we talk about the social, but we didn't actually tackle the social explicitly. And it's very hard to talk about humanism without talking about relationships between humans. And that in itself is an area of study that I think is worth exploring, perhaps in a second edition. And I think that the comment about, the kind of research that leads to, which is much more empirical, possibly qualitative, becomes much more important. So perhaps, the slight computer science bias within the team maybe it led us to do that. But I think these are important reflections that I think we need to make sure that in future editions we address. there is theory as well. It's not all empirical. I think even social scientists, maybe it's a different kind of theory, but there are many theories about human behavior and their relationships that are probably worth exploring in the context of humanism and digital humanism. So I just wanted to add that reflection 2 years on.
Thanks, Bashar. And shall we collect all the comments and then maybe there is some. Okay, so Edward, you are the next one.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I was involved in the very early stages, and I remember visiting Vienna several times as part of this scientific advisory board that Hannes mentioned. And I remember very particularly a conversation that we had over dinner, a few of us. And I had just finished reading Carl Sigmund's book about the Vienna Circle, which in the English translation has a really wonderful title, which is Exact Thinking in Demented Times. And, the Vienna Circle was really about building a kind of intellectual foundation for science in the 20th century. And our conversation kind of turned to the idea that we actually need a new foundation for science for the 21st century, that a lot of things have changed, and that the logical empiricism of the Vienna Circle maybe shouldn't be the dominant perspective, but a more humanist perspective becomes really necessary in science and technology. We had that conversation over dinner, over beer, way back when, this was just germinating. And I think the fact that this got going in Vienna and is associated with Vienna is not at all accidental. And I think that the agenda really is one of kind of building a new foundation for science and technology that I think really, could ultimately have kind of the scale of impact that the Vienna Circle had, but obviously in a different way. So anyway, just wanted to add that reflection. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Edward. Now is the time of Eric Prem.
Thank you so much, Enrico. And of course, thanks to Hannes for driving all of this, for sometimes being stubborn, but as we all know, without Hannes, nothing would have happened. So I'd like to second everything he said. Let me just maybe elaborate on one criticism that we are also facing, and I think it's important to listen to those who are critical of what we are doing here. And much of it concerns this focus on the human, because when people hear digital humanism, at least in the fields where I'm mostly working, which is related to philosophy or social science, people jump immediately on let's say, humanistic critique, which is understandable. But the truth of the matter is that throughout these last 5 years, I think we have also developed a little bit further. We have also learned many important lessons. And one is that the human as we think it is always the human as a part of society. It's always the human that lives with other humans. And this is essential for digital humanism. It's not just putting the human as the individual at the center. It's really about society, and this is why it's inherently political. So I think this is really important to develop further. It also includes that we need to take into account nature. That's something that in the original manifesto was only mentioned in passing. But circumstances have changed. There are now these modern challenges related to AI, which are also environmental, and I think we have a duty to address them. So I think it's fair to say digital humanism is also evolving. It's also changing, and we are learning from other fields, and this is quite important. Last comment maybe from as the coordinator of the European Digital Humanism Initiative, I'm also faced with the task to roll out some of our lessons learned and insights to broader audiences, especially also to industry. And that proves to be a great challenge. I mean, this is something really where we need the help of other organizations. We need the help of other networks. It's something that that is not as easy as it seems. You know, it's academic discussion is one thing, but then bringing it down to the ground and giving concrete recommendations what people should do and shouldn't do is a different matter altogether. But on the other hand, we see the success of our initiatives, we see the awards, we see what's happening everywhere. People are interested, and Digital Humanism is still the one institution that keeps everything together, from the bottom of, let's say, privacy preserving techniques to the very top of geopolitics. That is our USP, and I think we should keep that. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric, for your reflections. And now is the time of George. George, the floor is yours.
Tre punti. The first one is to congratulate Hannes and all the pioneers, many of whom are here today. There's an old and famous history of mathematics book that has as a title Mathematics, Queen and Servant of Sciences. That was written by Bell about 80 years ago. And I think a similar role, Hannes alluded to it by talking about the emperor and the plumber. This role is now taken by computer science in the broad sense. And this, of course, makes the responsibility even harder, even greater. The good life, and to the extent from the time of Aristotle, where he discusses the good life in his Nicomachean Ethics, is very much related to the relations between humans, which is what Bashar mentioned. Otherwise, if it's just the human discussing with AI companions, this is not the kind of well-being, eudaimonia, good life, and society. And the third remark is that when there is to be a next book, I don't say if, I say when, which undoubtedly will have an AI focus, and I believe, as was also said, a societal focus. This time, it should be thought of in advance how to integrate into the book something that gives us an idea of its footprint. You know, where are things downloaded? Where is the book downloaded? And perhaps, as Moshe suggested, putting something like a QR code, inviting those that download to get in touch with Digital Humanism, so that they can be put on our mailing list for all the events and start interacting and building a broader global digital humanism community, movement, and initiative. Thanks.
Thanks, George, for your comments. And now we have Carlo. It's the turn of Carlo Ghezzi. The floor is yours, Carlo.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the people who are here today, and Hannes, who put everything together. I want to comment actually on something that, Hannes said before on innovation. I believe that, we all believe that, innovation is not neutral. So I think that, digital humanism asks us to direct innovation in a way that it would support a better life for humans and a more just and equitable society for all of us. And this, I think, is giving an incentive to rethink what we do in universities, because in universities is where we are, generating the new generation of people who go out and then can do this kind of innovation. So we really have, I think, to do a collective effort to rethink the way we do research and education in a way that actually, we learn how to build innovation through interdisciplinary, collaboration with various people, and universities are there for that, in a way that actually it leads to an innovation that is good for people, for their life, and for society.
Thanks, Carlo. Hannes, you want to comment on something? I mean, we could go on for another hour with all these stimuli that came from the people. So, Hannes, pick something and comment, or I will pick something else and will comment, or
I can say something, and then we have to keep the time for the piece of music you have selected and chosen.
Yes.
I think people are already curious what you have chosen. Thank you all for this, and it also shows, all your comments show the intellectual power and capacity which exists in this group. And I could not contradict one of those, because it's just bringing me to two ideas which I think we will implement or should implement. And one is related to this innovation thing, I think, which is really crucial. And I'm going to organize a workshop in November on that. And you are invited to participate, really bringing together this, let's say, this framework of innovation together with digital humanism, so that we have something which can guide these innovation patterns in a proper way. And we have done already the first steps into that, and invited the guy who developed this business model canvas as an approach in this will. The second one is related to this, what Basha, but also Edward said, and all the others, is on this. And it goes back to the intellectual foundation of digital humanism, which is broad and which is involving. And we might have the problem to cover this with a book. And this brings the idea of maybe we should do a journal of that. That we should maybe start with a journal on digital humanism, where we could explore the different dimensions, because this is ongoing work. You cannot just write a book and then wait 2 years and do the next edition. But I think this is something which is also reflecting Eric's comment, where we say it's evolving, it's a discursive process, and we have to take into consideration different dimensions. But we started that with our Digital Humanism Research Conference, having this proper approach, but I think this is something we could go, and probably we should do. With this, I really want to thank you and for all what you did, and I'm looking forward to stay together with you to the next step in our approach. Thank you, Enrico, for doing that.
It was a real pleasure for me, Hannes, and to have this opportunity of discussing with you, and to see again all the good people that are attending today. And so I will not do any more comment. We can end now and listen to the piece of music. And so I give the floor to Stefan. Are you going to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Enrico. Thank you very much, Hannes. Enrico, do you want to maybe comment on your selection before we hand over to Peter, or shall we hand over to Peter directly?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically you can see there. I choose an all Italian performance. Baldassarre Galuppi, the musician, was a composer in Venice at the time of the more famous Vivaldi. So it's the golden age of Italian Baroque music. And this sonata for piano is played by Arturo Benedetti Michelangeli, that was a legend in the musical scene of piano players in 20th century in Italy. So the music, it's always, it sometimes happen, is apparently simple, but those of you that studied some music know that in simplicity there is the more difficult things are in music that appear simple. So I hope you will enjoy it as I have enjoyed it and enjoying frequently.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe let me also add one final word. So complementing our advertisements, we also need a next generation of digital humanists, and therefore please spread the news about our school. The program is nearly complete and is online. And now I hand finally over to Peter.
Yes, I mean, there's not much to add from my side. Basically, just one word of warning. This rendition is over 8 minutes, so there's going to be like the announcement goes back and forth on the billboards that I have because I didn't have enough announcements to fill the 8 minutes. But that is basically the talk that I already announced last week. Next week on March 31st at 5 p.m. summertime then already, so make sure to not mix up the time zones. Kathleen Richardson of De Montfort University will speak on, and then we have this long title again. I'm going to go through it once more: the egocentric I, the undifferentiated we, the IU attachment, a pronomial, political, ethical approach to technological attachment figures from robots to AI, as announced last time. And without much further ado, here is the piece, and see you next week.
See you. I can't hear the music.
It's not playing for you? Well, then let me just see if I've shared that.
Playing.
I
It was
listened
playing.
to it. It was playing.
It was working? All right.
Yes.
It was working.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
playing.
I'll start again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Beautiful. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.